Welcome back to The Chosen Life. I'm your host, The Chosen Lawyer. And you know it's going to be a great day in the world when Zachary Rain is on The Chosen Life. He's our money man, the money guru. We have so many things to cover today. But first and foremost, Zachary Rain. Zach, welcome back to The Chosen Life.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be back. And when I see it in my schedule, I know it's going to be a good day too.
Be fantastic because we're going to be covering off more than likely money, business, sports, Leafs, hockey. So we got a lot to cover today. But first and foremost, look at how we match up. We did not intend this fully, folks, for whatever reason. We're on the same wavelength, so we do tend to wear the same colored shirts, and we both picked red today.
Yeah, I know. What are the odds?
And good old Steve Carsey, I'm sporting him today while taping Chosen Life. So shout out to the Chosen Journey. A lot of episodes coming up because baseball season is underway. How exciting is that? We had our opening day very recently, the Toronto Blue Jays and all of MLB. Zach, did you catch the Jays home opener?
I was in and out watching it. I wasn't too impressed when I saw the scores.
Well, you think that we're here supporting the St. Louis Cardinals since they wear red. And I could tell you, for they had all the spring training to get all the kinks out. And, I think that the hitters, they brought their bats fully from spring training, and the pitchers left their gloves there because it was a shellacking. I believe it was 9-8, if I'm not mistaken. Blue Jays won their season opener in St. Louis, and a lot of interesting baseball scores. It's gonna be a fun season, and Steve Carsey and I on the Chosen Journey are gonna be talking about it all season long.
I'm looking forward to it.
So on today's show, we gotta jump in because we got big topics covered. First of all, the sky is falling. The sky is falling. We're gonna talk about banks, and we're Zach and I are both based in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, but this is worldwide. So people hear about banks collapsing. Everybody all of a sudden thinks, oh no, what's going to happen to my home country, my state, my province? So we're going to talk about those. We're going to pen a long apology letter to Mr. Joseph Woll of the Toronto Maple Leafs because he's long overdue one from this show. And then readers write in. So we got some comments today, and for some reason, talking about the New York Islanders, and I had mentioned that they were my disappointment for the NHL season. Well, people had some feedback for that, so we will get to them as well. So we always save the best for last. But Zachary Rain, money man. So when there's an issue in real estate, and I am in the office Monday morning, first thing is I have people calling in. So for example, I read in the paper, there's mortgage fraud. Do I have title insurance? Am I safe? So people love reading what's in the media and thinking, oh no, how's this applying to me? Well, the media had a field day with what was going on in the United States because let's see here. We got Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. So two banks in the US, they're having issues. And now people get worried worldwide. Did you get those phone calls from your clients? How do you respond to it? What's going on, Zach? Is the sky falling?
The sky was falling in the States for a very brief period of time. It fell a lot, so I don't blame people for worrying. There was definitely a reason for concern. I'm not getting the calls simply because what's going on in the States, while conceptually it's applicable here. It hasn't happened, and I don't think it's going to happen, just because the way that Canadian banks are regulated versus the way they are in the States, first and foremost. And second of all, I just think, I think Canada, in one sense, may be more resilient, and in another, the fact that we don't have banks necessarily on a provincial level, we do in some respect, but the vast majority of people in Canada bank with the big six, which are all federally regulated banks. In the United States, it's a little different. What you're seeing and what a lot of people were seeing were state-run banks getting into trouble. None of the federal-run banks were, experiencing too much difficulty, and so because they're regulated differently, there was a differentiation in how they were affected, over the last month. And so yeah, I'm not worried about it. It's not going to happen here. What happened, to explain it to everybody, is it's actually quite simple. Banks run mainly on confidence. Really, that's really the best way to explain it. When people have confidence in banks, they'll give their money to banks as deposits, or they will lend from banks in forms of loans. Um, and what those banks will do is they'll take people's deposits, and then just like, any one of us, the banks have places to deposit their money too. What they'll do is they'll deposit with the federal run banks or the provincially run banks. And from that, they will get their form of security, and their form of security for their deposit is often bonds. Bonds are debentures. They're essentially loans from one entity to another. So if, bank A lends to the federal bank, or sorry, gives $1 million in deposits to the federal bank, well, the federal bank will give $1 million in bonds back, saying, at the end of your investment, we'll give you your $1 million back, and we'll give you a little bit of interest here and there, right? The problem was, one of the problems was that because interest rates have been hiking and hiking and hiking so much over the last couple of years, the interest rate that the federal banks were paying the regional banks, the provincial banks, or the state-run banks, for the US examples, was so low that it was devaluing the bonds. And what that means is bonds that were worth once $1 million are now worth, $850,000. Now, why is that important to consumers, to the people that are lending to the banks? Well, if you put your money in a bank and you give them $1 million, you expect them to give you back $1 million. Okay.
Be nice.
Well, what happens if the banks can't do that because what they invested in isn't worth $1 million anymore? Right. Now, are banks, are they mandated to have certain reserves? Yes. Are they mandated by the types of investments they can make? Yes. But what happened was, because so many people lost confidence in the banks, saying, I'm not so sure that my money's safe there, they're going to start taking their money out, and where they're going to hide it, under the mattress, in the backyard, wherever it may be, right? But it means that they're taking money out of the bank. And no bank holds, for instance, $1 billion of cash on deposit, right? That, A, it's a security, massive security risk. And B, they want their money to work for them too. So when you have, the consumers, the investors, going up to the banks and saying, "Hey, we want our $1 billion back. Like, give it to us now," and they say, "Well, sorry, we don't have it," then everybody really gets scared, saying, "Oh my God, you don't have the money. Oh my God, you don't have the money. What are we going to do? What are we going to do?" And now everybody wants their money back because they think the bank's going down, and that causes the bank to go down. So it's just a snowball effect. And it's what we call a bank run. And unfortunately, that happened in the States because they don't have the greatest forms of regulation for state-run banks. And on top of that, with interest rates and the forms of assets and the companies that were investing in these banks, it was a whole recipe for disaster, which tons of people saw was going to happen, and nobody did anything about it, which, was idiocy to me. But in Canada, we have ways to prevent that. We have much stricter regulations. So can it happen? Yes. Will it? I don't think so. Is there a strong likelihood something like this happens? No, it's easily preventable.
So I go put $10,000 in, let's say, CIBC. Okay.
Mm.
The CIBC take that money and it's part of, let's say you go to apply to CIBC for a mortgage for a house. Are they using my $10,000 towards your mortgage?
Oh yeah, they're going to give me like 500 grand for the mortgage.
But in your 500, my 10 might be in there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Your 10 will be in there. Somebody else's 10 will be in there. Somebody else's 10 will be in there. There's a multiplier effect. So when a bank receives a deposit, they know that based off of withdrawal trends, they know that they can have maybe 5 times the amount of money loaned out that they have in deposits, because they know nobody's going to need that money, or they won't want that. So a lot of their money will be held in loans to said people, whatever it is, right? So there's strict math that goes into it. It's math I did in university that I really don't want to do again. But yes, that's what they're doing.
How is that not a Ponzi scheme then? That they're taking one person's money and investing it and then giving back from somebody else's money. Isn't it to some degree?
To some degree, I can see why you're saying that,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not a Ponzi scheme simply just because of the tiered lending and the regulations that require them to make sure that they have liquidity and assets available should you want it back.
Like I always thought, for example, let's say a whole town woke up one day, right? No matter
Yeah.
what province you are in Canada, so we'll use Canada because they have a different banking than the US, but the whole town wakes up one day, they all line up at their banks and they're like, okay, we changed our minds, give us back all our money. If every single person did that, bank is SOL, I would guess, because go ahead and go to almost any branch and try to take $10,000 out. They don't have it. It's amazing. Like, you know how you watch those movies and you break into the safe overnight, like you're able to go through the roof, through the HVAC system, you short out the alarm system. I've watched it all. I know even if you have to tie, chains to the bank safe itself and have a truck pull the safe out and drive around with the safe around and watch Fast and Furious.
Great movie.
When you get that thing open, it's going to be full of money. But you go here into banks in at least in Ontario, and you're lucky if they got a couple $1,000 lying around. So if you're going to be a bank robber, you're not going to have a very good profession out here. So where's the money, Zach? If they're not able to give us money, if you stand in line and say, "Hey, I want some money today," no, you got to pre-order that money. Where's that money sitting?
It's a good question. So, and you gave a really good example too. And in your example, you referenced that the banks would be SOL, but the reality is the banks aren't the ones who are going to be SOL completely. It's actually the people who are going to get the money from the bank, the depositors. They're the ones who are SOL because they're going to come and say, we want our money. And the banks are going to say, too bad, we don't have it. So, they're really the ones who are in trouble the most. Where does the money go? So, and every bank will tell you this, for security purposes, we do not hold that much liquid cash on site. So, they see somebody go rob a bank and there's like $5 million in the vault, and they're like, oh boy, just know that bank is doing about 100 million a day in cash on cash. So that 5 or 6 million, it maybe sound like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things for the banks, it's nothing. Not to mention they have to maintain their reserves. So if you do need a lot of money in actual physical cash from a bank, more often than not, you're going to have to actually do an order far in advance. The money is being held in secure facilities and in securities. That's just the way it works. Because our system is so technologically integrated between banks, depositors ourselves, like credit cards, for instance. How often does somebody actually touch cash these days, right? 20 years ago, cash was king. You'd see people walking around with wads of money in their pocket. Right now, it's just tap here, online payment here. So the need for physical cash has been reduced so much, and people are using the technology to pay for it. Most physical cash is being held in reserves in secure locations, some government locations and some locations owned by banks.
So you're not privy to these locations if we hypothetically wanted to plan a Fast and Furious heist.
I can neither confirm nor deny that I'm privy to the locations.
Somebody brought up a very good point to me the other day, actually. To be clear, they are not a drug dealer or drug runner that I'm aware of, but I think they're a very big fan of the show Narcos. And they're saying, you think about Narcos and, they have all the money and they're all wrapped up really well and hidden, etc. When we go to a moneyless system, like a paper moneyless system, so everything's going to be virtual money, how are they going to be exchanging these monies for drugs? Are they going to be using like USB keys? Like it's interesting crypto of where it's going to go, but that's like saying that tongue in cheek, obviously. But the other thing is like the conspiracy theories goes of why they're going to go to a virtual money system is because it's going to get rid of a lot of the underground businesses where people are taking cash. All of a sudden when it's tap, guess what? There's traceability all of a sudden. So somebody's thinking of something out there.
Isn't it interesting too that the blockchain was created and the cryptocurrency marketplace was created, and the people who utilized it most was the underground market, right? Like, for people who don't understand it, crypto assets are definitely valuable for some respect. Okay, a lot of people are investing in and out, but the most valuable form of crypto assets are for criminals. And it's, go read any study done, look it up. on governments tracking money, on governments, forcing certain crypto exchanges to give them their records on Canadian transactions, you'll see that it is a criminal underworld there. And so I just find it funny that the structure and the blockchain in itself used for the criminal underworld is what's going to be the sword that kills the criminal underworld's form of money movements. I don't think we'll ever go to a completely paperless society, just because there is an income class of people that just can't afford to pay banking fees, have debit cards, credit cards, things like that, don't have the technological means or understanding to do that. So there's still going to be cash in society, but the whole cashless society it's definitely scary for some people. I love listening to the conspiracy theorists as well, because for every statement they say that you just scratch your head, there's something actually relevant in there, and you think, wow, that actually may be a good point. So it'll be interesting to see where the world goes in that respect.
I can tell you, I very rarely touch paper money myself. It just doesn't come up. You get paid electronically, you pay bills electronically. There's no need to pull out money. So we'll see. I still think in my lifetime, I'm planning to live to about 120, 130. So I think I'm still going to see it, but you never know. Now, the people that did have their deposits in Silicon Valley Bank and its Signature Bank, are they sleeping better tonight, as far as you know, Zach?
No.
No, it's
They're
still
sleeping better. They're sleeping better than they did 3 weeks ago, but no. The concern with that, and the federal government has said that they're going to back deposits for certain banks in the U.S. federal government. I'll believe it when I see it, kind of situation.
Yes.
And we'll see if they actually need to do that in the end. But most banks have insurable deposit amounts, right? So for Canada, we have the Canadian Deposit Insurance Corporation, CDIC, which will insure your deposits up to 100 grand. So for anybody out there who's got deposits of more than 100 grand with certain banks, diversify. That's definitely one thing to do. Go to 5 or 10 different banks and have 100 grand at each one. If you're a wealthy person, have that. Don't have $1 million with one bank. Anyways, in the States, they have insurable amounts of 250 grand. The problem is that the people who are using Silicon Valley Bank are tech giants. They have I don't know, $500 million on deposits. So their 250 is nothing. Yeah, exactly. So I can't tell you that they're sleeping better at night, but I think that they're certainly not sleeping and trying to figure it out.
Well, I hope all gets solved for those depositors and those banks. And, it's funny because, there were leeches that right away, would reach out to the companies that had deposits saying, we'll buy your deposits for pennies on the dollar, but we'll help you out here. We'll do it for 20%, 30%, 40%. But, some took the deals and some are waiting to see if they'll get back most, if not all, their money. So let's hope it all works out for everybody in that sense.
Yeah.
Something that has worked out for somebody really, really well is Joseph Woll. So for any time we have hockey talk here on The Chosen Life, especially with Zach Rain, I suspect that the people involved watch our episodes and it motivates them so much to want to go and really, really, succeed. And I remember, I'll never forget our first conversation on Joseph Woll. Don't want to say that you called him a fraud, but you're saying, I will believe it when I see it. It's something along those lines. And I'm not relying on this guy. Sorry. And I've heard the Leaf goalie prospects before. This guy, I don't know if he's the one. Well, Mr. Joseph Woll, born July 12th, 1998, in Dardenne Prairie, Missouri, in the USA. He catches left. He was a third-round pick back in 2016. All he's done this year is play 4 games with a record of 3-1, a 2.03 goals against, and a 934 save percentage. Zachary Rain on sports radio, when I'm listening to it as I'm driving around, everybody is convinced. We got our guy. This is it. We know Samsonov can walk off if we need to. Murray, we can buy him out if we need to. Woll will be here next year. He is the Wall. You're not spelled the same way, but this guy is on cheap dollars. We signed him early before this giant breakout of 4 games. So Toronto is really, really excited, Zachary. It's time for us to send an apology letter to Joseph Woll, wouldn't you say?
after 4 games. Um,
I was, by the way, also at Eric Shalgren's first game, which was a shout out. He got a shout out in his first game. I got very excited about the future of Eric Shalgren. I have not seen him since. Go on.
yeah. Listen, I'm not apologizing to Joseph Woll yet. If I'm the catalyst that allows him to just put his nose down, keep grinding, keep winning, keep succeeding, then I'm certainly not going to do it because good for him. On the same token, give me a break. 4 games. Like, come on. Not to mention, he was shaky in those 4 games. It's not like the goals that he let in were great either. So, does the guy have a future? Potentially. Born in 98, kid's young. He's a young person, right? Lots of future and lots of runway left. But by no means after 4 games going 3-1 with, even those, 2.0, give or take, and, a solid 930. I don't have that confidence in him yet. Put it this way: the Islanders fans that are ripping me and you apart for saying that Sorokin's above average, he's had 150 games in the NHL with stats that are similar to that, and I still won't give it to him. So I'm certainly not giving it to Joseph Woll.
We're going to get to the Islanders fans. I promise. They're with pitchforks outside our stadium looking for us, Zach, that they're not understanding what's going on.
They are passionate.
They're passionate. But Wall, also keep in mind, in his career has played 8 games for the Leafs. He has played a whopping 8 games. He's got a 6-2 record, 2.39 goals against with a 922 save percentage. He's done this for 2 years, Zach. Every year bring him in for 4 games. You know what you're getting.
Oh yeah, I'm so impressed. Am I happy for what he's doing in the AHL? Absolutely. Is he an exceptional goalie in the minor leagues? I'm going to give it to him 100%, right? Does that translate to him being an all-star NHL goalie? Maybe. Like, not right now, but maybe. So I don't really know. I don't really know what to say here other than good for him. You took the first few steps. You should be proud of yourself. They were 4 good games, but until he steals a game or even a series of importance, you don't have my respect.
Okie dokie. So that's where we're at with Joseph Woll. And looking now, forecasting as the playoffs start to, the picture becomes clear, and it will start very soon. How are you saying the Leafs are going to shake up their goaltending? Like, where do you see things going now with Samsonov, Murray, Woll, Shalgren? What are they going to be doing in the playoffs, Zach?
I think at this point, Samsonov's job is just get as healthy as possible. I think the net's his. I don't think you can really argue with it. He's played whatever 4 or 5 times the amount of games as Murray has. Murray has had a shaky start since coming back. The problem with Murray, because, and again, I haven't been able to watch nearly as much hockey as I'd like to lately, just because Rain Finance has been doing fantastic and I'm busy, so keep it up there. But I find that Matt Murray will make a save that, where he's down and out, there's no chance, open net, easy save, whatever it is, or easy goal. And next thing you know, he saves it. And then you're just like, wow, that's amazing, right? That's fantastic. And then in the next play, he'll leave a crappy rebound out. Somebody will put it in the back of the net, and you're like, well, all for naught, right? So I think that Matt Murray still has some adjustments to make. I think it's hard to cancel out his pedigree, his playoff pedigree, and what he has done. Like the resume is, it's a hard one to ignore. But on the same token, you have to give it to Samsonov just because he's earned it.
Game 1, else being equal, I think for me, Samsonov's in that period.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And Murray's the backup. And if Samsonov is showing any kind of shakiness, then you bring Murray in. If Samsonov does well, you in hockey, especially playoff time, you ride the hot hand. You don't rotate. You ride the hot hand, and that's the way it's got to be. And if not, Joseph Woll is right there for you. And listen, he may end up being the Stanley Cup MVP for all we know. So
I would love for him to pull a Jordan Binnington and just shut me up. I would be so happy, but I just don't see it. So
what in the world did happen to Jordan Binnington? I don't understand. The man got a big contract. He got the Stanley Cup. He won it almost single-handedly. Why is he so angry, Zach?
He's an angry man. I don't know.
Angry.
It doesn't bode well for us because he's a Richmond Hill youth, and that's just next door to us. So I don't really know what happened to him, but he is mad. He has a bone to pick. What I want to attribute it to is the fact that he's just a major competitor, and he doesn't want to see you in his face. He doesn't want to see you in his crease. He doesn't want you to score on him. And if you do, well, hell hath no fury like Jordan Binnington. So
If St. Louis calls you up in the offseason and says, you know what, we'll take Murray's contract off your hands, and you know what, you can have Binnington, we're done. Would you take it?
yes.
Agreed. So,
Yeah.
on that note, as we're hypothesizing here, it's time to give our fans of the show, and I use the term fans loosely because, you know, they love us, but they hate us when they write in their comments. They're very brave on social media and on YouTube. We're seeing your comments, folks. We're addressing it. And in this segment now, there's one specific segment we're talking about. It's the one about the New York Islanders. Is it time for a rebuild? So, first of all, at the time of taping, just to be clear here, the Rangers are doing since we did that taping, which has been some time ago. It's funny people watch stuff from 3-4 months ago, and then they call us out and look at the Rangers record. Are you crazy? Well, the Rangers didn't have that record. We recorded it. They weren't doing that well. Since then, I don't think they've lost the game in the last 2 months, so it seems. But shockingly, the Leafs and the Rangers have the same amount of points at 98 points. So kudos to the Rangers for waking up. Zach woke them up. The Islanders are my disappointing team. The Rangers were Zach's disappointing team. So the Rangers responded. Are you still disappointed with the Rangers, Zach?
No, not anymore. Like I'm disappointed for what they did. There's no reason that they should have been as bad as they were. And for I don't know whether it's Patrick Kane and the fact that he's probably the best American-born all hockey player ever, walking into their room and saying, "This is how it is. This is how it's going to be, and y'all better listen to me," because maybe that's it. But no, they're fantastic now. They're firing on all cylinders as they should have always been. So I think that goaltending has definitely gotten a little bit better too, because he was having a rough time there. But not disappointed in them anymore. I drafted half their team in my fantasy. I was all in on the Rangers, so I'm still am now.
The Islanders are sitting at 87 points at this time of taping, and not bad. But it's funny when I say they were my disappointing team because I expect to see them in first, not around third or so. And you look at the record, it seems like everybody's got 87 points. Like, what the heck is? You look at the standings in the West and the East. In the East, you got 3 teams right now that are barely under 500. You got the West, where 4 teams are under 500. Is like every single game going to overtime? Like, what the heck is going on here? Like, Zach, this whole thing about overtime and shootouts and points, I think we need to go back to a win is a win and a loss is a loss, not this 1 point, 2 point crap. Like, seriously.
I'm with you. Moral victories don't count. You win or you lose. There's no in between.
But in all the NHL, it seems like there's basically only like 7 teams which are actually crappy. Everybody else is getting by. And
those 7
well.
teams are really, really, really crappy. No, there's a lot of parity. I think it's nice. I think you have, the top tier, which is Boston, which is just kicking the what out of everybody. Carolina, which for whatever reason beats great teams like the Leafs or Boston or even the Rangers now, but then they'll lose to Columbus. So I don't know what the hell's going on with them, but they're up there, and the Leafs and New Jersey, right? And Tampa. Well, Tampa's a juggernaut again. They had a rough start to the year as well. They're the other half of my fantasy team, but they're in second gear now, really, really just cruising. So
it's gonna be scary come playoff time for certain. So, as
I think
promised,
the Leafs are going to take them.
Still thinking the Leafs are getting out of the first. I agree that I think they're getting out of the first round this year. I agree with you.
Yeah,
I agree with that. So we got a few fans here. They're go. They want to give us their comments, so let's get to it. We got Shaff Zam. I guess that's kind of a name.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Did this guy say the Isles goaltender is just above average? Lost all credibility there." So between Sorokin and Varlamov, I think that both of them have nice numbers, no doubt there. But I think it's Sorokin he's talking about, and he's having a nice season for certain. A lot of goaltenders are having very nice seasons. Like Zach, when I was a youngster back in my day, and you had the Grant Fuhrs. Remember Grant Fuhr? Reading about him in history class.
Oh yeah. I loved reading about that Edmonton Oilers team.
Guess what? A 3.3 goals against used to get you a Vesna. You know what it gets you now? You're out of a job.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't know what happened, but everybody seems to have a 2 goals against.
Yeah.
So I think that, to me, as a statistician, that is very, very misleading. So Sorokin's got nice numbers. They got a good amount of wins. But to me, I actually will agree with you on that one. Do I think of him honestly as an elite goaltender? Is this guy going to steal all my games? Is he going to pull a Binnington? I don't see that, but I think he's a very good goaltender. Is it fair to say still above average?
Yeah, I think when I said above average, I don't think the context was that he's just above average, like he's just an okay goaltender. I think it was more that he's not an elite goaltender, right? So, we can say just above average is anywhere between being, plus 500 goalie, somebody who's definitely going to win you games, good goaltender. But, when I think of elite goaltenders, it's like you said, I think of a goalie who's going to steal you a game. I think of the fact that Carey Price, however he did it, carried the horrible Montreal Canadiens to the Stanley Cup final, right? Like, that's what I think about. I think of Andre Vasilevsky stealing a series for Tampa, and I'm going to say it. I don't care what anybody says. The Leafs should have won their series last year. It is the only time in playoff history over the last 5 years, whatever it is, for Tampa, where they've been the absolute juggernaut they are, where they were outshot and outscored in a series. And the only reason they won is because Vasilevsky decided to steal that series for them. As good as, Varlamov is, which, whatever, he's really the backup. But, as good as the Islanders in general, let's just say their goaltending is, they're not stealing series. They're a defensive team that's, great for them. They're a defensive team in general. I'm happy for them. I think that they do a great job. A great job defending, but I don't think that they're going to be, the team that steals anything. And I don't think Sorokin is going to be that guy. He's just, maybe he will be, but at 150 games, it's like I said, it's hard to say. Steal a series, do what Jonathan Quick did, whatever it was, 10, 15 years ago when the Kings went not back. Did they go back to back? I think they went one on, one off, one on the Stanley Cup.
I don't think it was back to back.
Yeah. Do what they did. Do what Tim Thomas did in Boston. Like Tim Thomas by no means was a legendary goalie, but he stole series for them with Boston. Like that's what I want to see.
Another question. I was gonna ask you. I was gonna ask you why Quick was not on his way to Toronto, and when I sat in Vegas and I saw live the Flames and Golden Knights, and the Flames won that game 7-2 or 8-2. I had my answer of why Jonathan Quick is not the answer. That was brutal.
Jonathan Quick is considered one of the biggest divas in the NHL. The guy, I met him in New York, asked him to sign an autograph, and he looked me directly in the eyes. This is when I was a kid. Looked me directly in the eyes and just walked away. And I was just like, wow, okay. I get the type of person you are right now. And you can see by the whole situation of him getting traded to Vegas that the guy is full class diva. He thinks he's better than he is.
Well, through Columbus, obviously, he never actually ended up in Columbus, but he was a passageway into Vegas. And I thought, well, I actually thought that was a great pickup for them. I guess I was wrong on that one.
Yeah, he's another one. If he turns it on, he can steal you a series. But, he hasn't shown that in a few years, let's say.
Next person, we got Rob G. Rob G writes in, the Islanders made it to the finals 2 years in a row, missed the playoffs last year, and have still one of the best defensive teams in the league. Not to mention Brock Nelson, Matt Barzal, and Sorokin, superstar and one of the best goalies in the league by far.
Okay, so who's this? Rob G?
Rob G.
Rob G likes to live in the past. Moral victories are great, Rob G. You know how many people remember second place? Nobody does. Let me put it this way for you. Sorokin is not a bad goalie. He's not a bad goalie, okay? But he needs to steal you series, which he has not. When you play on a team that is coached by Barry Trotz, who was one of the most best defensive coaches in the NHL, and I know he's not there anymore, but he was, right? We're talking about, a team that is built to not let you score. right? Like the Islanders don't go out there and go, okay, let's see how many goals we can get. They go out there and say, let's see how many shots we can limit on net. Let's see how we can reduce high scoring chances. That's the game they play, which I respect, because when I coached, that's one of the ways that I coached my teams. Okay. We want to make sure that they don't get any high scoring chances. They don't enter our house, that little house looking figure within the offensive zone. I'm with you, but the Islanders are not what they once were. I think as good as Lamoriello is, he's missing the boat on the type of team that he needs to build around some of the core players that he has. I think bringing Horvat in was a no-brainer. The guy's all class, all-star. I don't think Anders Lee is as great as everyone thinks he is. I think the guy's a unit, 6'3", 250 pounds, whatever he is. He's a thick, strong man. But, as far as game breakers, they don't have any. They don't have somebody out there who's going to take the game by the horns and say, this is my game. Sorokin won't do it. Barzell can't do it. Horvat, I don't think he can do it either. Anders Lee surely cannot do that. Okay. So not even any of their defensemen. Okay. You watch Tampa Bay play. There are some games where Victor Hedman will say, this is my team, my game. You're not getting past me and my 70-foot wingspan. So, they don't have that. So until they have that, they're not an all-star team. And they can putter around and say, oh, well, we're a good team. We're a good team. First of all, they're not beating the elite teams. They're not beating the Bostons, the Tampas, even the Leafs, the New Jerseys. They're not. So keep trying, but it's not going to happen.
Sorry, Rob G on that one. With time for a couple more, Zach?
Mm-hmm.
All right. We got JP. So again, this is the episode where we had the clip and talking about is it time for the Islanders for rebuild? JP, I will preface that by saying I haven't watched this yet. I hope you've watched it by now, JP. But the answer is yes, in capitals. They do. And the answer is also it's already likely way too late to start. They totally beep after this year ends. Watch again in about 29 to 30 after this season is over. That's how badly they've been mismanaged. Enjoy your toilet bowl 8th seed and getting completely demolished in the first round by Boston. Huh?
So I think he's supporting that the Islanders need to be rebuilt.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, I agree with him. I think it's a waste of time.
I don't think they're as bad as JP put them to be, but
no, but it's like, listen, it's if you're not contending, right? If you can't go out there on any given night and say we can win this game, no problem, right? Or even to an extent saying I know we can. It may be some difficulty, but I know we can. Then what is the point? Nashville was in a similar position to the Islanders were. Okay, good team, defensively strong. Pecorino is a stud, right? Like they were in a similar position. And last year they were in a similar position too. And this year they said, forget about it. They said, even if we finish 8th, we are not pulling what the Kings did. We're not going from the 8th seed to win the Stanley Cup. We're just not. Okay. Nobody on our team can compete against the Boston, the Tampas, even New Jerseys right now. The Leafs, they can't do that. The Carolinas, right? They're not going to beat those teams. So you might as well fold in and get some assets out of it. You got players on expiring contracts. Why are we giving up draft picks for players, who are on 1-year deals or, buying a UFA like they did Horvat? They re-signed Horvat, so good for them, but could have just signed him in free agency as well instead of giving up picks for him. So I don't get it. I think they should have rebuilt too.
In my opinion, respectfully, I'm with you. I could see one of two ways. And this is a lot of the discussion came around the Connor Bedard sweepstakes, right? What is the point of being a middle of the road team? Like you're constantly around 500. You're maybe going to make the playoffs. And this is any sport now. I'm going to preface this could be any sport whatsoever. He's prefacing, I'm prefacing, we're all prefacing. But any sport, if you could be 500 and you're going to kind of make the playoffs, and then almost guaranteed you're going to bounce in the first round, what's the point? I think you're either going to be total garbage or be the best. Don't want to be in the middle. If you find you can't be the best, break it all down, start again. Doesn't work out, break it all down. But some of these teams that just are constantly 500 average for their existence, it bugs the bejeebers out of me. And I know some markets, they won't allow these rebuilds, but too bad. That's the way it's got to be. If you look at any of the top elite, especially in NHL right now, you take a look at Tampa, you take a look at the Leafs. Guess what? they were garbage for quite a while till they got
New
their footing.
Jersey.
New Jersey, ugh, and I didn't see them coming this quickly, by the way. So kudos for them. But you don't get a million first round picks and very high first round picks unless you've been very bad for a while. And one of them generally won't do it for you. You need to get a few of them together. It's not like the NBA where you can draft one person, they can do you can do your whole team. You actually have to have a few players together. Look at imagine Crosby Malkin on almost any team. You put those two together, but it takes time to get first overall picks, and a lot of things have to hit off for you. So thank you, JP, for sharing your message. We're going to end this one today with Joseph DeVito. Joseph was not content with one comment. Joseph needed 2 comments, but they're very, very short. Joseph is just a man of few words. Obviously, these guys don't watch hockey. I don't know how that's obvious, but so if you disagree with me on my point of view, that means you know nothing about it and you definitely don't watch it, because if you did, you'd only agree with me.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't know about that, Joseph. Next, what is this guy even talk? What is this guy even talk about the Rangers? And there's no punctuation here. Have not been around 500 since like November. Is that even this? I don't know if that's grammatically even the thing, but okay. So we've established that when you're recording and you're watching, that things, circumstances change. The second the Rangers saw that comment that they were disappointed to Zach, they said, we're going to show Zach. And then we're going to get his boy, Patrick Kane, because he's been touting him all year. So you lit some sort of fire under the Rangers there, Zach. And they're well off because of what you said.
Yep, got a little bit under their skin. So they should be well off. They're a deep team, man. Their defense are beautiful. Their goaltending should be flawless. So the Rangers, and most of all, I love their coaching, right? They have Gerard Gallant. Okay, Gerard Gallant.
Of course.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny how we have this carousel. Like at the end of the year, they put all the coaches on the carousel, and you just pick up one, and because they're so interchangeable. Like Flyers with Tortorella, he's only been coaching like what 20 teams.
Yeah, exactly. He'll be done soon too.
But you notice also a pattern with these coaches, right? They come in, immediate impact, the message wears thin pretty quickly. They only have a certain life shelf. They're not going to put up with them for much longer.
No, exactly. They want to win. They're in win now mode. I think Gerard Gallant's a really good coach. I think he did a really good job with Vegas too. So I have high hopes for the Rangers, especially because they have an easier path to get through than let's just say it. They have an easier path to get through than the Leafs playing Tampa and then playing Boston. Like, come on. So
we'll go round by round, Zach, and when a time will come, I promise you this: when the opening round of the NHL playoffs is going to begin, you're going to give us your predictions, and we'll see how you do, buddy.
We should do a bracket. I think that'd be really cool. Stanley Cup bracket, each of us.
Okay, we will negotiate that one and see how it goes. As we sum up today's episode, Zach, thank you for sharing your NHL wisdom, your banking knowledge, your money knowledge. How are things going in the markets? What's new in the world of finances? Any message for our viewers?
Things are going really well in the market right now. In the vast markets, the capital markets, things are starting to look more hopeful. Inflation's less sticky. It's on a downward trajectory, which is great. It may take a little bit longer to get it down to where it needs to go, but better than causing a financial crisis. That's good. Rain Finance is doing well. Thank God. Knock on my head. Insurance. People are finally getting the messages that we have out there about insurance. We're working with a lot of business owners and real estate investors about succession planning, maintaining their estates. So that's fun. We're doing tax planning because everybody in Canada knows that our government loves to take our money. So, we're able to do a lot of good planning on that respect. And I'm really hopeful. And we're starting to just slightly see interest rates trickle down just a little bit right now in the long term, especially on 5-year fixed. So that's hopeful for people too. I think the message that we should spread today and our final note is hope. I think that the world is finally catching up to where we've been, what we've done, and we have a plan and the course of action And so there is hope. If you're able to just hang in there for another round or two of, getting Ali punching you in the face, then if you can stick it out, you'll be all right in the end. So that's the final message.
The message of hope. Folks, we love you. We appreciate you listening in and sharing your comments, your questions. Hit the subscribe button, notification bell, send in your questions for Zachary Rain of Rain Finance, the money man, whether it's on money, insurance, Maple Leafs, life. We'd love to hear you. And you never know when your question's going to be answered. Just ask our good friend Joseph DeVito or Rob G. Zachary, always a pleasure, my friend. And as we sign off, we pull out the guns, right? And we always
Yeah.
say,
Keep on living the chosen life.
cheers.
Cheers.